Most people assume wealth is won by a sudden insight, a lucky bet, or being at the right place when the bell rings. They picture a jackpot, a home run, a founder in a garage who becomes a billionaire overnight. That's a good story for movies. In real life, the people who build durable fortunes almost never get there that way. They get there the slow, stubborn way, by repeating a set of practical habits until the math of compounding does the heavy lifting. Unlock the secrets. Charlie Munger's 10 Habits to Multiply Your Wealth. Tenfold. That framing isn't a promise that you will hit a tenfold outcome next quarter. It's a plain statement of possibility. Apply certain habits consistently over decades, and you put the odds in your favor of multiplying your net worth many times over. The secret isn't magic. It's discipline applied to simple leverage that time provides. I spent a lifetime watching this happen and watching it fail. I learned early from a man who never owned a business but understood money. My father used to say, treat your savings like you would a hired hand. Find it good work to do and don't fire it. He meant that every dollar you don't burn on impulse can be put to work. Years later, observing markets and working alongside people who thought clinically about value, I realized he was pointing to a system more than advice. You don't need genius. You need a set of habits, a small toolkit, and the patience to use it. Over the next sections, I'll lay out 10 habits, each a discrete practice you can adopt. They're inspired by lessons from men like Charlie Munger and the behavior that actually produces results. I'm not selling a formula that guarantees tenfold outcomes. What I will do, plain and simple, is give you the operating habits that, when compounded, can tilt probability toward substantial long-term growth. If you want the checklist that summarizes these 10 habits, hit like now, and I'll drop it in the description so you can print it, pin it, and begin. Habit 1. Live below your means. Make savings your first employee. Living below your means is dull until you recognize it's the engine room of everything else. Imagine 2 people, each earning the same salary. One spends every dollar they earn and pines for a lottery win. The other spends less than they earn and invests the difference. Fast forward 20 years. The difference isn't more exotic investments. It's time. That modest, regular surplus compounds. 1 extra % saved this year becomes a larger base on which to earn next year, and so on. Why it matters. You cannot compound if you are constantly eliminating base capital. Income alone rarely builds wealth. Accumulated, invested surplus builds it. The psychology is simple. Small sacrifices are tolerable when they are habitual. The arithmetic is even simpler. If you save $200 a month at a modest return, you don't need miracles to accumulate a substantial nest egg. The miracle is really the math. Consistency amplifies small choices. A practical micro-action. This week, identify 1 recurring expense you can cut and redirect that amount into an automatic transfer to a savings or investment account. Make the transfer happen before you have a chance to spend it. Treat that transfer as payroll to your future self. Habit 2. Invest in yourself. Your knowledge is compounding capital. Most people treat education like a checkbox. Finish a degree, move on. But skills and judgment compound like capital. When you invest time learning a discipline, your productivity rises, your decisions improve, and over a career, those returns are enormous. Read broadly, but read purposefully. Learn how businesses make money, how incentives shape behavior, and how to think across disciplines. The advantage isn't fleeting certification. It's judgment that keeps you out of harm's way and points you toward opportunity. Why it matters: human capital is sticky. A skill you learn at 30 can earn higher returns at 50 because it multiplies across roles, projects, and networks. Unlike speculative investments that can evaporate overnight, deep skills and judgment often appreciate and create optionality. An analogy: treat your mind like a garden. The seeds you plant, skills, habits of thought, perspectives, grow into roots and trunks that support everything else. Neglect that garden and you'll be hungry for ideas and opportunities. A practical micro-action. Commit to 30 minutes of focused reading every day for the next month on business models, history, psychology, or a technical skill relevant to your work. Keep a simple notebook. Each week, write one page on how one new idea could change a decision you face. Habit 3. Be patient. Long-term thinking is a quiet multiplier. Patience is underrated because the modern world rewards the visible and the immediate, but markets, compounding, and most meaningful businesses reward patience. The market literally transfers wealth from the impatient to the patient. That's not mystical, it's behavioral. People sell in panic and buy in euphoria. Those who endure get the benefit of time and the smoothing effect of cycles. Why it matters: consider a fruit tree. If you water it, prune it, and wait, it yields fruit season after season. If you dig it up every month to see if it's growing, you disrupt growth. And sometimes you kill it. Investments and careers behave the same way. The compounding arithmetic requires time. Short-term price movements are noise. Long-term cash flows are what matter. Practical micro-action. Before making any non-trivial financial decision in the next 6 months, buying a new car, moving into a more expensive apartment, switching careers, write a one-page plan detailing the expected 5-year impact on your balance sheet and lifestyle. This practice forces you to judge actions by their long-term consequences, rather than immediate gratification. Habit 4. Only invest where you understand. Stick to your circle of competence. There's comfort in novelty, especially when everyone talks about a hot new sector. But the edge you have as an investor is clarity. Know what you own. Stay inside your circle of competence. That doesn't mean you can't learn new things, but it does mean you should be cautious taking major positions in domains you don't understand. Why it matters: uncertainty is not the same as risk you can price. When you understand a business or an asset, how it makes money, what the competitive pressures are, you can estimate its likely future outcomes. When you don't, you're guessing, and guesses become panic in bad markets. A simple mental model. If you can't explain how an investment makes money to a non-expert in 3 sentences, you probably don't understand it well enough to take a material stake. Practical micro-action. For any investment larger than a small percentage of your portfolio, write a short memo, 1 page, explaining in plain language how it generates cash and what scenarios would make you sell. If you can't produce that memo, either learn more or avoid the position. Habit 5. Maintain a margin of safety. Avoid operating at the limit. Margin of safety sounds like technical finance jargon, but it's just practical protection. Don't run your life or your investment so close to the edge that one unexpected event forces panic. Maintain emergency savings. Don't buy assets at prices that leave no room for error. Keep optionality. Why it matters. Systems fail when they operate at full capacity because they have no buffer. A sudden medical bill, a business slowdown, or a market correction will reveal how sound your planning is. When you have a margin, you get choices. When you don't, you get anxiety. An analogy. Think of a ship. A vessel trimmed with some ballast and a spare engine is better able to weather storms. One overloaded to the gunwales can sink quickly when a wave hits. Practical micro-action. Build or maintain an emergency fund that can cover 3 to 6 months of basic expenses in liquid assets. Review your leverage. If your debts are large relative to income and assets, take the first steps to reduce them. When contemplating a purchase, ask, could I survive a 20-30% downturn in this asset without being forced to sell? A short caution. Tax and legal structuring can improve outcomes, but those are complex and regulated. Consult a tax or legal professional before implementing any structural strategies. Don't take advice about tax avoidance from strangers on the internet. Habit 6. Protect your reputation. Trust is a compounding asset. You can replace money. You can't easily replace reputation. A good name creates access, better deals, better partners, better opportunities. The short-term gains from cutting corners rarely pay off in the long run. Reputation compounds in the same way capital does. Consistent small choices day after day build credibility, which then multiplies the returns of future actions. Why it matters. Opportunities are often offered to people, not ideas. When people trust you, they do business with you, recommend you, and extend credit. Conversely, a damaged reputation can close doors permanently. The price of ethical lapses is not just the immediate loss. It's a diminished capacity to participate in future gains. An example, I've seen a bright operator able to make money for years, but reputation issues eventually limited his deal flow. The returns he could have earned through partnerships vanished because people stopped extending trust. Reputation is not philanthropic. It's cold, pragmatic capital. Practical micro-action. Audit your public and private behavior. What would a business partner say about you after a single email exchange? Tighten your promises. When you commit, deliver, and when you can't, apologize early and make restitution. Keep a reputation ledger in your head. Tally up the small interactions that either add or subtract from trust. Those first 6 habits are the foundation. Save consistently. Turn your skills into appreciating capital. Learn patience. Stay in what you understand. Build safety buffers and preserve reputation. Each one feeds the others. Savings give you margin. Patience lets compounding run. Reputation opens better opportunities for investing your surplus. Competence reduces mistakes. Margin makes you resilient. Together, they form a lattice on which long-term growth sits. But habits don't exist in isolation. They interact. A good reputation enables better partnerships, which in turn accelerate the returns from investing in yourself. Margin of safety preserves the option to invest in a crisis. A panic offers bargains to those ready with liquidity. And that's where the story often turns. Crises look like disasters until you have the means to act. People who prepare quietly find themselves in a position to buy when others are desperate to sell. The same disciplined habits that create steady growth also create optionality. Yet there's an important behavioral wrinkle. Humans are drawn to action. We overtrade, chase stories, believe in fast success. The real difficulty is execution. You can understand these habits intellectually and still fail to practice them. Why? Because incentives, peer pressure, and the dopamine spike of visible gains push us to trade away the slow, boring advantage of habit. Let me give you a personal moment I've returned to more than once. Early in my career, a junior partner came to me with a pitch, an exciting, headline-grabbing deal that could double our capital quickly if markets didn't move. It sounded tempting. I liked the deal intellectually, but I was more interested in whether taking it would compromise anything else: our margin of safety, our independence, our reputation. We passed. Years later, that same trade imploded for the people who bet heavily and had to liquidate at the wrong time. The survivors were those who had the discipline to say no, to accept smaller, steadier gains, and to let compounding work. There's an irony here. Discipline often feels like losing because you forego the immediate thrill. But the arithmetic rewards the boring choice nearly every time when time is on your side. If you accept that, you've already got half the battle won. The second half is wiring your life so habit wins. How do you wire it? Automation, boundaries, and partners who keep you honest. Automation sends your savings to work before you can spend them. Boundaries prevent temptation. Simple rules like no debt above X or no investments I cannot explain remove discretionary failure. Partners, trusted advisors, friends who keep you accountable are social systems that protect against overconfidence. We'll come back to automation, influence, and the social side of investing, because that's where the leverage really multiplies. For now, let's pause and consider an obvious but under-practiced truth. Many people treat their financial life as a collection of transactions rather than as an operating system. You won't win with sporadic brilliance. You win by building a system that reduces the frequency of avoidable mistakes and increases the probability of catching long-term compounding. Next, we'll turn to two habits that most people underestimate, but which, in practice, do more of the heavy lifting than any flashy trade: avoiding excessive debt and an aggressive appetite for continuous learning. Mental models that change the way you see the world. Those are what separate those who survive cycles from those who thrive through them. But before we jump there, take a moment. Which one of the 6 habits you've heard so far can you commit to strengthen today? Make it specific. Automate the change. Measure it next month. When you're ready, we'll dig into the psychology and mechanics of leverage and how learning across domains, history, biology, math, psychology, gives you an unfair advantage in a world hungry for simplistic answers. The rules that seem abstract become exercises in survival and opportunity when markets wobble. And opportunity, more often than not, accrues to the patient, prepared and prudent. Habit 7. Avoid excessive debt. Keep your freedom of action. Debt is a tool. Used properly, it can amplify results. Used recklessly, it turns good fortune into servitude. The psychology of debt is sneaky. Small monthly payments feel harmless until interest and obligations constrict your options. When the unexpected happens, a job loss, a business slowdown, a health emergency, debt magnifies the harm. Worse, leverage can convert a modest paper loss into a forced sale that wipes out years of disciplined accumulation. Why it matters. Freedom is an underappreciated asset. When you're not obligated to meet high fixed costs or interest payments, you can wait for opportunities instead of being forced into them. That optionality, being able to choose rather than having to act, is the same advantage that lets patient investors buy in panic. Debt steals optionality. Low leverage restores it. A short illustration. Two small business owners earn the same revenue. One finances growth with minimal borrowing, reinvesting cash flow. The other uses heavy leverage to expand quickly. In a calm market, both may look successful. In a downturn, the leveraged owner faces margin calls, creditors, and illiquid assets sold at discounts. The owner, with modest debt, keeps running the business, compounding gains while others scramble. A practical micro-action. This week, calculate your ratio of total monthly debt payments to take-home pay. If it's above a comfortable threshold for you, say 20-30%, identify one liability to pay down aggressively. If you carry high-interest consumer debt, prioritize reducing it before considering new investments. Make a second action. Set an upper bound on your personal or business leverage and write it down as a hard rule. No exceptions without a written plan and consultation with a qualified advisor. A cautionary note. Certain forms of leverage can be appropriate and sensible. Mortgages on income-producing property, business credit lines used for working capital, when they're managed within clear limits. But treat each use of debt as a contract that shifts risk from market volatility to your personal obligations. If you're unsure how to structure debt for a business or complex investment, consult a financial or legal professional before acting. Mini Hook. Habit 8 explains how widening your thinking prevents costly mistakes that debt amplifies. Habit 8. Keep learning and use mental models. Expand the toolbox of judgment. The world is complicated, but your decision-making doesn't have to be. What changes outcomes is not having more facts, but having better ways to interpret the facts you already have. That's the promise of mental models. Simple, portable frames borrowed from multiple disciplines, economics, biology, psychology, that let you see the core of a problem quickly, why it matters. Knowledge compounds like money. The book you read today may change one decision next month and a dozen decisions 5 years from now. Over a career, that cascade of slightly better choices can dwarf occasional lucky bets. More importantly, a diverse set of frameworks protects you from blind spots. You stop mistaking correlation for causation. You see incentives, second-order effects, and the rare but consequential events that most people miss. An analogy. Think of your mind as a workshop. Each mental model is a tool. If all you bring to every project is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Add levers, pulleys, thermometers, and you realize more efficient solutions exist. A practical micro-action. Start a weekly reading habit focused on a different discipline each month. History, psychology, basic statistics, business cases, and natural sciences. After each book or article, write a short note. One mental model learned, one decision it might change, one concrete rule of thumb you can test. Over time, compile a personal playbook, 24 models you actually use. When faced with a decision, run it through 3 models before acting. A behavioral habit tied to learning. Argue with your own assumptions. Assume you're wrong in one key way and try to find evidence for that position. This inversion, asking, "How could I be wrong?" reduces the danger of overconfidence and keeps you from doubling down on fragile ideas. Mini Hook. Habit 9 is the invisible multiplier. People you keep close change everything. Habit 9. Surround yourself with people better than you, the company you keep. No high-performing investor is an island. The people around you, partners, friends, mentors, employees, multiply or magnify your efforts. Surrounding yourself with smarter, more disciplined people exposes you to higher standards, better deals, and sharper feedback. It's not humility for humility's sake. It's practical leverage. Why it matters. Quality partnerships reduce friction. A trusted partner shortens your learning curve. A careful advisor points out risks you missed. An honest friend intervenes when you're about to make an ego-driven move. In practical terms, who you know and who trusts you will often be the first source of exclusive opportunities. Partnerships, investments, customers that rarely show up on public markets. A brief observation from decades in the field. I watched people with middling talent achieve extraordinary results simply because they partnered with the right peers. Conversely, brilliant individuals can self-sabotage by cultivating the wrong crowd. Cheerleaders who amplify bad ideas and normalize reckless behavior. A practical micro-action. Make a list of 5 people who raise your standards. For each one, note a specific way to deepen that relationship over the next 3 months. Invite them to a coffee. Ask for a short review of your plan. Offer help on a project. Second action, identify one person in your orbit who is a negative influence. Someone who encourages short-termism, irresponsible spending, or impulsive decisions, and set a boundary to reduce their impact on your choices, on partnerships and hiring. Be deliberate. When you bring someone into a business or investment, make expectations explicit. Culture and incentives matter more than credentials. Good alignment, shared incentives, clear roles, avoids the slow erosion of returns caused by misaligned behavior. Mini-hook. Habit 10 is where all these things, automation, choice, and focus, become a daily machine. Habit 10. Build systems, focus, and say no. Make it hard to be stupid. Habits win when systems win. Inspiration is fleeting. Systems persist. The person who sets up automatic transfers to savings and limits their exposure to tempting products will outperform the person who relies on willpower alone. Focus means choosing a few big things and ignoring the rest. Saying no is the defense against noise. Why it matters. Systems reduce the number of decisions you must make, and each saved decision is decision-making energy redirected toward the important ones. Focus prevents distraction and sloppy execution. Saying no preserves optionality. The intersection of systems and focus is where compounding becomes unstoppable. A small percentage improvement repeated consistently becomes a major gain. A practical micro-action. Pick one financial system to automate this week. An automatic transfer to retirement, a recurring investment in a diversified vehicle, or a payroll-like allocation to a separate account for investments. Next, create a no list. 3 categories of financial moves you will not make. Examples: no single investment larger than X% of net worth, no high-interest consumer debt, no speculative bets without due diligence. Post that list somewhere visible and review it monthly. On Focus, ruthlessly prioritize. If you can master one industry or skill, it's likely better to get to real competence there than to dabble widely. That deep competence feeds into your circle of competence and reduces costly mistakes. A word about technology. Use it to automate and monitor, not to chase trends. Set up dashboards that show net worth, savings rate, and core metrics you care about. Let the data guide the habitual changes. Mini hook. All 10 habits aren't independent. They form a lattice that, when intact, creates resilience and optionality. Synthesis. How these habits multiply? Wealth over time. Let's stitch these threads together into the picture that actually plays out in successful cases. Saving is the raw material. Investing in yourself improves the rate at which that raw material grows. Patience allows compounding to work. Understanding and competence keep you from making catastrophic mistakes that destroy capital. Margin of safety prevents forced selling. Reputation opens exclusive doors. Low leverage keeps you free to act. Continuous learning improves judgment. Better people multiply your returns via access and feedback. Systems make it automatic. Picture a tree again. The financial trunk is savings and invested capital. The roots are learning and reputation. Deep roots let the trunk withstand storms. The branches are partnerships and systems, extensions that reach into light and collect opportunities. The fruit is the wealth that appears year after year. Every habit strengthens a part of the tree. Miss a root, and a storm can topple you. Ignore the trunk, and there's nothing to bear fruit. The tree metaphor is not poetic fluff. It's a practical map of interdependence. Consider crisis as fertilizer. In panics markets, prices fall and opportunity knocks. If you have savings, liquidity, and low debt, you can act. If you also have reputation and competence, you access deals others can't. If you have systems that keep your capital allocated and your feelings out of the way, you can move quickly. Historically, the people who compound wealth over decades are those who treated crises as part of the landscape, not anomalies that force panic. That's not because they are immune to fear. Everyone feels it, but because their habits make fear a signal instead of a mandate. A realistic example. An individual who saved diligently, invested in skills, kept modest leverage, and had a strong reputation could, over decades, buy high-quality businesses or assets at attractive prices during recessions. Those purchases, incremental, disciplined, unemotional, are the private engine of multi-decade wealth accumulation. The math on each purchase may look modest. The aggregate effect is what surprises people. Behavioral traps to watch for. If habits are the ingredients, behavior is the oven. Two common traps destroy long-term compounding: overtrading and narrative addiction. Overtrading is the habit of thinking activity equals advantage. Narrative addiction is the habit of believing stories, especially flattering ones, over math and evidence. Both are fed by social media, financial news, and the human craving for certainty. Guardrails you can use. Slow down decisions that could change your net worth materially. Require a written memo for every sizable investment. Use a checklist that includes worst-case scenarios. Solicit a dissenting opinion and make it part of the normal process rather than a special event. Measuring progress. What to track and how. If you want habits to win, you must measure them, or at least observe them. Measurement doesn't require obsessiveness. It requires honesty. Track a handful of metrics monthly: savings rate, net worth growth, smoothed over rolling periods, debt-to-income ratio, and one personal metric: hours spent reading or a number of meaningful conversations with mentors this month. Review these 9 times, and you'll notice patterns. A practical plan. For the next 12 months, pick 3 metrics tied to the 3 habits you care to improve most. Automate 1 metric, e.g., savings rate via transfer. Set a monthly calendar reminder to review 1 personal metric, reading hours, and create a quarterly review where you write a short memo on lessons learned. Keep the memos. They become a record of judgment and progress. Small wins and momentum. People misunderstand compounding because they expect fireworks. Instead, compounding is a momentum game. Small, consistent wins accumulate speed. 1% improvements piled across areas, spending discipline, better hires, a small increase in saving rate, 1 extra hour of focused learning a day, add up in ways that surprise superficially minded observers. A micro-commitment. Choose 1 habit to own for the next 90 days. Make it visible, measurable, and non-negotiable. If it's saving, automate the transfer and name the account. If it's learning, schedule the 30-minute block on your calendar and protect it. If it's reputation, pick 1 action, responding timely to commitments, and do it without fail. After 90 days, reassess and layer on a second habit. How to handle setbacks. Failure is not a moral stain, it's data. When you misstep, pay a costly mistake, tumble in a market, apply the same toolkit. Descriptive clarity, a written admission of what went wrong, corrections in systems to reduce the chances of the same failure. Long-term compounding is not about being perfect. It's about surviving and learning. The best response to mistakes is curiosity. What did the error reveal about hidden assumptions? Adjust and move on. An illustrative vignette. Years ago, I watched a promising manager lose a chunk of capital because he chased momentum and used borrowed money. He could have blamed market forces, but he documented each decision, identified the points where incentives and ego led him astray, and then rebuilt his process with new guardrails. Over the following decade, he recovered, not by luck, but by structural change, smaller positions, written memos, and a renewed emphasis on reputation. The recovery wasn't dramatic, it was persistent. Practical roadmap for the next 90 days. If you want a simple, disciplined way to start converting these ideas into action, here's a straightforward roadmap you can apply immediately. Day 17, pick 1 habit. Commit to it publicly. Tell a partner, a friend, or leave a note where you'll see it. Automate what you can. If the habit is saving, set up the transfer. If it's learning, schedule the reading blocks. Week 2-4. Measure. Track your chosen metric weekly. If you promise to cut a recurring expense, confirm it's actually gone. If you committed to no new debt, watch for temptations and remind yourself of the cost in lost options. Month 2, write a 1-page memo describing what you did, why it mattered, and what you learned. This forces reflection and reveals whether what you committed to is sustainable. Month 3, review. If you succeeded, add a second habit. If you didn't, diagnose why. Was the habit poorly designed, poorly automated, or insufficiently motivated? Fix the process, not your willpower. A final word on humility and ambition. Ambition without humility is risk dressed as courage. Humility without ambition is a quiet life with deferred potential. The productive path is calibrated ambition, big goals pursued with modesty about what you know and discipline about how you act. The habits I have outlined are not maximalist. They're prudently aggressive. They aim to tilt probability in your favor repeatedly over long horizons. One last practical micro-action before we close. Write down your 10-year financial aspiration in plain language. Don't make it a fantasy of consumption. Make it an intention about freedom, how much optionality you want and why. Then, for today, choose the single smallest action that moves you 2% closer to that state. Do it. Tomorrow, do another. Closing synthesis and the true secret. If there's a one-sentence summary that honors the spirit of what Charlie Munger and pragmatic investors have taught me, it's this: compounding is less about magic and more about avoiding disaster and repeating small, correct behaviors. The real secret is not a trick to find the next rocket stock. It's the discipline to save, the humility to stay in your lane, the courage to wait, and the stubbornness to make systems that enforce good behavior. These 10 habits: living below your means, investing in yourself, patience, sticking to what you understand, maintaining margin of safety, protecting reputation, avoiding excessive debt, continuous learning and mental models, surrounding yourself with people who raise the bar, and building systems with focus and a firm no are practical. They are neither glamorous nor quick, but applied consistently over years and decades, they change probabilities in profound ways. They create a landscape where compounding can do what it does best: turn steady improvement into significant results. A final practical challenge in CTA. You've heard 10 habits. Now pick one. Make it visible, automate it, or systematize it. Measure it in 90 days. If you want a ready-made tool to help, I've prepared a one-page checklist that summarizes the 10 habits and gives simple prompts to implement each in the next week. Download it in the description, print it, pin it, and commit to habit number 1 for the next 90 days. If this message landed with you, subscribe for more practical habit-focused strategies. No hype, just disciplined advice rooted in decades of observation. Closing line: the best time to have started was years ago. The second best time is today. Start small, start disciplined. Let compound interest of money, judgment, reputation, and relationships do the rest.